Today we have Jay Williams with us, who is the Executive Director of OC United, and I'll let him introduce himself. So thank you for being here today.
All right, cool. Well, it's great to be here. I'm looking forward to it. So my name's Jay Williams, as was stated, and I'm the Executive Director of OC United. We're an organization that's been operating for 7 years now, and prior to that, I served as a pastor at one of the local churches in the community, and I was there for 16 years. And my role in that church, my title was Compassion and Justice. So my role was helping our faith community to engage in the needs and opportunities that were in our local backyard. And so that kind of led to me starting Love Fullerton and even OC United.
Right. And for those who don't know, what is OC United and what purpose does it fulfill in the community?
Yeah, so as I stated, so my role was I was working as a pastor trying to help our faith community engage in meaningful ways in our community. And that was my job. And so one of the first things we did was we actually started Love Fullerton. And this was a collaborative event where we were working with multiple faith communities. We were working with the city. We were working with local businesses. We were working with Cal State Fullerton, Fullerton College, and anybody that wanted to come and participate with us. So the first thing we did was this collaborative event in our community. And kind of out of that event really grew our heart and desire to be fully invested in our city. So I came to realize after a certain period of time that some of the dreams that I had and things that I wanted to do in the community were going to best be served by starting a separate but maybe connected nonprofit. So it was connected. So the OC United was launched out of the church, but we were independent of the church, and we had an office downtown in the community. And all of a sudden, maybe some of the barriers that I had experienced before were removed. Now everybody was willing to play with us and partner and work with us. And so just a lot of doors opened up because of that partnership. So the mission of OC United, who we are, is we work to prevent the healing and prevention of trauma through restorative relationship and whole person care. So that's our mission. So the problem that we're addressing is trauma in every corner, in every place of our community. So we're a trauma-informed organization that fully believes that's the challenges that we want to meet, and we meet that through restorative relationship and whole person care. And so then everything else that flows out of that mission. Right. If that makes sense.
It does. It definitely does. Could you give a few brief examples of what services are currently being offered through OC United?
Yeah. So when we started, I think we were looking at what are the needs that we saw in our city, and one of those needs was homelessness.
Right.
So this city has had for a number of years it's had, and if you were to talk to a city worker and say, what is the biggest challenge that we face in our city? And homelessness for a number of years would have been one of those things was at the top of the list. And so I knew as an organization that we wanted to be a part of the solution and we wanted to participate in some way. But to be honest, when we started, didn't really have a clear plan and this is what we're going to do. So it was going to be, we want to be a part of the solution in some ways. And so we got started, and one of the things that became pretty evident when we opened one of the first local shelter in North Orange County, which is called Bridges at Kramer Street. They wanted us to bring a program that was called Jobs for Life, and it was a workforce development program. So it was working with men and women who needed to find employment and hopefully to get back to work, and hopefully with the goal and the dream of becoming independent and being able to provide for themselves. So we started this program, Jobs for Life, at this county facility, and we've been doing that ever since. So we've been operating probably 6 years, and I think we've done probably 14 classes where we've offered this in local shelters in the community. So that's one of the initiatives. Another area that we stepped into is working with aged out foster youth. So through our faith community, we've been running a camp called Royal Family Kids Camp.
Right.
And this is a camp for foster kids ages 6 to 11. And we had did that for many, many years. And then we started a teen camp as our kids started to age out of this little program that we had, the summer program. Then we started running a summer camp, and then we began to address the issue: what happens to these kids when they turn 18 and they emancipate from the system in a sense?
Right.
And so one of our dreams was to be able to provide wraparound services and care and support and even housing for aged out foster youth. So that was a dream. Believe it or not, it's happening. We've probably, since we started, I think we've had 28 kids that have gone through our program that have graduated and moved on. Our partners are Fullerton College, Cal State Fullerton are among some of our closest partners. So foster kids, aged out foster kids in particular, have come to us through those two schools. The school refers them to us saying, hey, these kids need housing, they need other support. So we've been fortunate to be able to work together. So that's one of our big initiatives. We provide case management for these kids, housing, and restorative relationship means we're deeply in partnership and surrounding them in every way we can to try to help them to have the skills they need to become independent. And we're just getting ready to put out a piece of communication that's talking about 11 of our most recent graduates. And they kind of during COVID and to present time, we've just launched all these kids where they're now in their own independent housing. They have full-time employment.
Right.
Many of them graduated from either trade school or from Fullerton College, or even with a university with a bachelor's degree. And so it's really a huge piece, a success stories for us of pretty amazing, resilient kids that we've been privileged to walk alongside.
Right. And all this work has been done, in under a decade since OC United has been.
This is a short window of time.
That's very impressive.
So we work with homelessness. We work with aged out foster kids. We're also deeply embedded in the Fullerton area here, specifically in Southwest Fullerton.
Right.
So we've been partnering with a school called Valencia Park Elementary School. We run after school programming there. We've been doing that. I think we just this year in the sixth grade class that's graduating to become junior high students, we realized that these kids have been with us since they started, since they were first graders. And so now they're transitioning with us, and they're going to be with us in our teen program that we have. And so we're involved in an after school program at this one school. We're hoping to expand that. So we're in a partnership with the school district to operate this program in the school, and we're hoping to expand that in the future.
Right.
We also, in that same neighborhood, we have one of our staff persons. Her name's Gabby Garcia. She's from the community. She's been a community organizer in that community, trying to empower the local residents to identify the challenges that particular community is experiencing, and then really empowering them to make the changes that they see and empowering them. So the issues that they were addressing was high crime and juvenile delinquency. And so for 4 years, we've been working with this group of folks, empowering these families to make a difference in their community. And so that's been a real exciting process for us. So believe it or not, there's one more area that we're involved with, and we're involved in, and we run support groups for women coming out of domestic abuse. So that started in this area as well, started in our office facility originally. Then we moved into the police department. They have a community room, and this group of women were meeting there. Now they meet in our place during COVID. Right. And when the police department was shut down, they've transitioned, and so they're now meeting in our space. So so we weekly provide a support group for women coming out of domestic abuse, and that's now in our Latino communities as well. And so we're very excited about that and the role that we get to walk alongside some amazing women that we get to walk through their journey of trying to help them to, in many cases, leave abusive relationships and find health and healing in their own journeys in their own life. And so those are kind of the four big broad initiatives that we work at. I know it's a lot.
Oh, it's definitely, and you're covering such a vast array of problems in Fullerton.
It is.
And trying to, solve it through its own methods.
And for us, we would say that at the core is trauma, that they've all experienced trauma. So in all our places, we're trauma informed, and we believe in this process of restorative relationships. So a deep connection. We're going to walk with you. We're not going to just offer this program. We're going to live life with you and walk alongside you, and then begin to introduce resources to help address social, emotional, spiritual, physical challenges that they're facing.
Right. So it's a long-term commitment that you make to these people.
Yeah, and these 12 kids that we're telling the story that our foster kids it's a long story. If you were to talk with our individual caseworkers, and as we could tell the stories about each kid, and we've watched the growth as they came to us, and kind of we just get to be in there. It's a long game.
Right.
But that's what we believe. That's what we're about.
Right. So, that's what's effective, right?
Yeah.
If you were just there for 2 months and then you leave, then it doesn't work the same way.
Which is back to the beginning, why we started this in the first place. Under the umbrella of the church, we were offering programs and events and that kind of thing. But to become, if you're going to be deeply embedded and walk alongside that's a different process. And so that's essentially why we started OC United, because that's what we wanted to do and be. So
right, that's very impressive. And to talk further about some of the more programs, in May of this year, Gilbert Community Center had its grand opening.
Yeah.
Could you briefly talk about what's new and upcoming with that?
Yeah. So part of what we call our neighborhood initiative, which is where we do our after school programs and where Gabby has been doing the community organizing. So in that community, we were part of a grant with St. Joseph Providence, and it's a 4-year grant where they're teaching us to be community organizers. And they're teaching us not just to run program, but to begin to look at systemic issues that are keeping a community stuck in some of the challenges and brokenness. And so really, this was something that was stretching our organization to look at justice issues. How do we look at policies that need to be addressed? What are there things that are keeping people stuck? So that kind of was a huge growth process for us. And so in the midst of that, we began to recognize we wanted to have a place in the community where these families and these empowered residents could meet and could call their own place, because they didn't have a place like that. The park that was in the community was had a long history with homelessness in the community. So a lot of the residents in the community didn't feel like they could go to that park and be in that park, and so they wanted to have a place, and so we began looking for a location, and then during COVID, the city shut down the Gilbert Community Center, and eventually came to us and asked us if we would be interested in operating our program out of this facility. And we, of course, were like, oh, this is amazing. It's in that same community, and it connects us to another school and to another community. So we said yes, and then it was kind of a long waiting process.
Right.
We actually operated in there for close to a year before our official grand opening. They were letting us operate out of there and run programming out of there. But on the grand opening was a great celebration for us to say, man, this is a place where we're invested now. So we started a teen program there. There was a lot of teenagers from Valencia Park School and Orangethorpe School and Nicholas School that had gotten acquainted with us through some of our programming, and so pretty soon we had like 30 kids that were wanting to hang out in this place and didn't have a place to do that. So we started a teen program there,
right?
And and we also are offering. We're going to be offering ESL classes. We have a class working with diabetes, so health issues, and we've got lots of dreams for the program. We run a summer school program out of there in the month of July. So we'll have 70 to 100 kids that will be in that park and in our community center there. So it's a great space that's got a great future ahead for that community, and really trying to empower the community. What needs do you see? What do you want to see in this place? And so we have this group of empowered leaders that are in there that are kind of helping dictate and say what do they want to have in the space. So we're grateful for the partnership with the city, where they essentially let us use this facility. We pay for utilities and so we had a mural painted in. I don't know if you've been by there lately, but we had a muralist in our community that came and offered to do this mural. It's absolutely stunningly beautiful.
Yeah, I saw pictures of it.
And it stands out. And when you drive down Orangethorpe, you see this place. So people want to know what's going on over there. It just kind of was like a magnet, inviting people in and drawing people. And our teens got to be a part of painting that mural on. So they were included in the design as well as the installation of putting it. So we're really proud of that.
And it's a great initiative, and I'm very excited to see the future of the community center and what's more to come. Now, we mentioned Love Fullerton briefly earlier in this conversation. What are some reflections? Because for this year, it's an annual event. It's already happened. What are some reflections from this year's Love Fullerton project?
Yeah, so Love Fullerton is something. So when I was one of the pastors at a church, so I for years did a serve day event with our church, and it was a big church. So there would be a couple thousand people, and we would do 2 days, 8 hours a day. So there was a big work time frame, so we could accomplish a lot. And then I did an event in our community. It was actually a women's transitional shelter in our city, and we did it in partnership. I think there were 3 churches and our police department, and we did this together. And after that experience, I said, I'm never going to do this alone again. And I came across this Love Our City model. It actually started in Modesto. We started in Love Fullerton 9 years ago, and so. For me, it's just become this great collaborative entry point for people. It's this chance for people that care about their city. They want to give back in some way. They want to contribute in a positive way for the common good of our community. And so this gives them a chance to do that. So we had 80 projects. We had close to 2,000 people from probably every part of our city. And so for me, one of the things about this last year was during COVID, we shut down our opening and closing part. So we do an opening kickoff event and a closing luncheon. And this year we implemented that back again. And this year we started at Fullerton College and ended at Fullerton College. And it just was, it was first of all fun to be back in a public event, to see that many people in one space together was really fun. And I think people, like for me, that was probably the biggest event that I've been in from during our COVID days. So that was a highlight, seeing everybody having a great time. We had a food vendor a nonprofit in our city that's just starting their role in our city, and they have this beautiful food truck, and they provided breakfast burritos for everybody that were really good, and that was fun. And then at our luncheon, we had the Fullerton Collaborative, which is basically made up of the nonprofits in our city. They were there with booths at lunchtime saying, hey, these are the needs in our city. These are volunteer opportunities. And here you have this group of people that are already community minded because they've volunteered to give their day. So it was a great win. And that was the first time for us to do that piece. So I'm excited about the future. because I tell people, and I've been telling people for 9 years now, that this is not about that day, even though I think that day is a great day. Anytime you see all the different organizations and all the different sectors of the city come together in a meaningful way for the good of our community, that's a beautiful day.
Right.
But it's still a day. And our goal is to introduce people how you can make a difference all year long.
Right.
And so that's why we had all these other organizations there. So it's not just OC United, although we want to invite people into what we're doing because we feel like we're doing good stuff and we have lots of ways for people to be involved. But we want to help people to find their niche and their passions so that they can make a difference all year.
Right.
And we're beginning to really see that happen. One more story, if I could tell.
Of course.
So one of the things that we've always done is we've worked with our with the city and their parks and trails. It's through the city maintenance department where we did beautification of some of the trails and some of the parks in our city. And last year during COVID, we shared the opportunity that if you would like to adopt this trail or this park, that you could come back and continue to help us because the city was in need. Their staff was pretty depleted. And so they found just getting the trash emptied at these parks was very challenging for them with the staff that they had. So believe it or not, we actually did have people that participated in the event. Then they came back and they signed up. And so here they are a year and plus days ahead where they still go back every month. And this whole team of volunteers go and clean these trails, work in these parks, clean them, maintain them, take care of them, love them in that sense. And so for me, one of the leaders I was talking to about going to this trails, he said, well, we really don't need, there's not really anything to do there because we're going there every month and we're taking care of this.
Right.
And so I said, well, what if you go somewhere else? Let's pick another location.
Right.
So anyways, that was really fun for me to see, hey, so if we work ourselves out of a job because we've got people in carrying all scattered all over the city, that would be a wonderful problem.
Right.
So those were for me a couple of the highlights.
Right. And that event has some real effects after it's over.
Yeah, continues.
You know? Right.
And I said one more. So
go ahead.
I continue still to this day. I'm getting calls from social workers from our city. Right. So every city has a code enforcement department. Right. And this is in the community development department. So if you have a neighbor, perhaps, maybe the house is the outside is overgrown, it's not being maintained very well, or there's a lot of debris and garbage and whatnot on the outside. Or sometimes it's just inside and someone can't take care of that. It goes to the city, then the city writes code violations and they get fined and they need to take care of this thing. So I'm having organizations, social workers, and county workers are actually calling us and saying, hey, we've got this person that lives at this location. Can you help? So right now I'm planning to do a summer Love Fullerton event where we just invite volunteers to come because I'm just getting a stack of these needs that are coming to us. And so we're going to just try to find volunteers. So we'll promote it through Love Fullerton website, through our social media circles. We'll pick a day, probably in July. And we'll just invite a team of 100, 150 people to come and work on probably like 10 different sites where we'll come to some of these homes. It's painting, it's cleaning. I just had a group from multiple colleges this last weekend and we worked at 2 projects. So I get groups that reach out to us like that. So all these projects seem to find us now. And so we just, again, it's just an access to, maybe I'll reach out to Fullerton College and say, hey, you guys, we need 20 volunteers who can come and help this home. So those are ongoing things that are really helping make a difference in our city. Right.
And that's just remarkable work that's being done. Yeah, I'm very impressed. So you already touched on this, but so for people who want to get involved year round, maybe they missed this year's event. What are some resources that you would tell them to reach out to, maybe with OC United or apart from OC United, that need volunteers and that need donations?
So you can always go to ocunited.org,
Mm-hmm.
and we have a whole volunteer section, and we have a gal that's on our staff who will
Mm-hmm.
walk with you, try to meet with you, help you to identify where's your passion, what's your
Mm-hmm.
availability, what kind of things would you like to be a part of, and so she'll try to match you up with us.
Right.
Fullerton College, I'm a part of Fullerton Collaborative.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a part of their board. I'm the co-chair of that, and so I work with that, and so that's a collaboration of, I don't know, 50 to 60 nonprofit organizations.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can contact Fullerton College or Fullerton Collaborative, and then
Mm-hmm.
we'll help you connect with one of the many partners that we have that are organizations that all need help and work in our city. And so that's one of the ways. Love, if you would join us on social media, so either Instagram or Facebook, Love
Mm-hmm.
Fullerton. You can get connected. As I said, we'll be putting communication out on the summer event that we'll do, and other things that become available.
Right.
So there's under the Fullerton Collaborative, there's a lot of great organizations and partners
Mm-hmm.
that are in our city. Some of like Pathways of Hope, that are organizations that have been in the city for I think close to 50 years,
Mm-hmm.
working in homelessness, and so Hoya Scholar, Solidarity. There's just so many organizations, and all of us are nestled under the Fullerton Collaborative together, where we're trying to actually do collaborative work as well
Mm-hmm.
between our organizations. So we have a next gen working with the youth in our city, at-risk youth in our community, with multiple organizations. So we are working together in that environment. That's a great place for someone to check out, Fullerton Collaborative.
Mm-hmm.
And that would introduce you to all these different entities and organizations
Right.
in our community as well.
So there's plenty of ways to get involved if people want to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you for explaining all of that. I think the listeners will be very enlightened to know how much community work is being done through OC United and other nonprofits. But who do you think that we need to have on this podcast, maybe to talk about this issue more, or anything else that you think needs attention in Fullerton?
Oh gosh. Well, I would refer to some of our fellow organizations that I just referred to. I think each one of them does really good work, and they're going to be addressing different issues and challenges that are here in the city. We have our specialties. We're one of the unique organizations that's working with aged out foster youth, and the community organizing work that we're doing. There's actually I mentioned this grant that we were working with. There's 2 other sites in our city that are doing the exact same thing. So we actually have 3 organizations that are working together in different parts of our city, but in at-risk neighborhoods or under-resourced communities that are there. And so each one of them would be an interesting to bring one of those organizations, a community organizer, to come in from one of those neighborhoods and talk about what they've learned, how they've empowered people. That would be, I think, really interesting. And so there's 3 organizations there. Our OC United has a group, they call them United Voices of Valencia Park. And so Gabby could bring a couple of her team members and come. There's one with the Center for Healthy Neighborhoods, which is in the Richmond neighborhood. And that's an organization that was started by Cal State Fullerton and through their department, and they now run, and they're in that community. They have a organization that would come, and Woodcrest has an organization that would be an interesting them. Well, they've completed their work, but they're still continuing to advocate in our city council meetings and really trying to be a voice for their communities. And then all 3 of those organizations, we're all working together as well. What can we learn from each other? How can we collectively have even greater impact as we try to impact policy changes at a city level?
Right.
Other nonprofit organizations, leaders would be great interviews, and I would be happy to refer any of them through the collaborative. Right. I know I'm a part of a group that's called the Fullerton Act. Fullerton Act is a network of Christian faith communities that are trying to work together for the good of the city,
Right.
encouraging each other, trying to get people out of their silos, and why don't we all work together?
Right.
And so there's just lots of opportunities, lots of great groups in the city that this really is an amazing city as far as collaboration is concerned. So I think you'll not have any trouble finding meaningful conversations about people doing good work in the city. So we're really fortunate.
For sure. Thank you so much for sharing the resources and the work that you do. And thank you for doing the work that you do. We are so glad to have you on this podcast and share this with any person who's interested in learning more about nonprofits and volunteering in the city. So again, thank you so much for being here today. And that is the end of this podcast.
Thank you, everyone.